Yo, Tank Abbott here, UFC, WCW legend, here, rapping with Hannibal. Check it out. I'm alive, I'm healthy. Woohoo, back from the dead.
This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today I'm at the lovely residence here of former UFC superstar, former WCW star and MMA pioneer David Tank Abbott, who has his little dog with him. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey Bud, what's up? This is my dog Bud. I usually don't like him hanging out, even though he's my best friend, because he's so cute and all the chicks like him, and it doesn't do very good for me because I'm the opposite. So I make him look good. So here he is, and we're here to talk here in North Scottsdale, my new residence and new place of being.
Well, what took you out of Huntington Beach to start this off? Was it Tito Ortiz, or was it something else?
Tito Ortiz doesn't have anything to do with my life whatsoever. He doesn't affect him. I misspoke there. He does make me laugh quite often. I mean, you YouTube the guy, and the first 10 YouTubes are how dumb he's the dumbest guy in MMA. I mean, he made his mark, that's for sure. But I don't know. I'm not so sure if I'd want that kind of reputation or something following me like that as being the dumbest guy in MMA.
So what brought you out of Huntington Beach, before I digress?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Huntington, you know, I lived there for 44 years, and back in the late 80s through the 90s, mid 90s, was a hell of a place to live. It was great, and ever since then, about 95, it started going downhill. I mean, it really has gone way downhill. I mean, case in point, I hate to bring up Tito Ortiz, but he's on the city council. Wow, that's awesome. I don't know if I give him credit for being such a con man liar that he is. I guess he is a politician, but that fool's representing that city, and then the homeless people, all the stuff. Not that I have anything against homeless people, but my God, it just ain't the same place it used to be, and so it was time to leave. You know. Huntington Beach is like an old girlfriend of mine. I'm glad that we had our time together, but wouldn't want to ever see it again.
Now, with all your history there, did people bother you a lot on the streets when you were walking around asking for autographs? Or?
Yeah, you know, here's and there's. It's just whatever, you know. Everywhere I went after I fought on the UFC, but everybody knew who I was in Huntington Beach, and back to the con man, phony liar, will say anything to generate news. I was the original Huntington Beach bad boy. Everybody knew who I was throughout the county and beyond. That I wasn't the guy to mess with, and I took care of business. And a lot of people found out the hard way. Wasn't like today, you go to MMA gym and say, oh, you're like a dilettante or a fact finder, and you're all of a sudden instantaneously, because you pay gym dues, you're a fighter. Didn't work that way. There was no gyms back in those days. There was open wrestling rooms I used to go to. Used to go to the boxing gym and fight and actually box. Fighting is not boxing. It's not synonymous. There's a part of it that, you know, your heart and the will of dealing with pain and persevering, being a true warrior. But rarely does a boxing match happen in the street. But always in open wrestling rooms, looking to bang around. And in fact, when I finally got into the UFC, had to start dabbling around with what the hell is going on. You know, we saw the Gracies on TV, and jiu-jitsu is a real thing, and you had to learn how to to deal with jiu-jitsu. And so we would go into the wrestling rooms, and besides takedowns and all that kind of stuff, started branching off into this jiu-jitsu stuff. And, you know, I don't want to say I'm a historian, even though I have my degree in history, but the first 5 shows, as far as I understand it, was owned partially or mostly by the Gracies, and they were out there doing their own Gracie commercial and trying to push their jiu-jitsu. And obviously it works, and it's tough, but you can figure it out in just about 2 weeks if you have a good, strong wrestling background, which I have. And there it is. You had the first 5 shows, which were nothing more than Gracie Jiu-Jitsu commercials. They picked their fighters. There's a huge conflict of interest in that. And then the first real show is when Bob Meyerowitz and Semaphore took over. That was UFC 6. And there's a lot of shenanigans going on in that thing. My belief, they wanted Oleg Taktarov to win the whole show. I mean, it's not really hard stretch to figure out that why Pat Smith pulled out, the biggest pussy that walking the face of the earth that fought in the UFC. And trust me, there's been some clowns like Joson and all of that. But Anthony Macias, he's a little pretty boy, couldn't beat up a kindergartner, is out there fighting Oleg Taktarov, winking at him. I didn't know if they were going to have sex in the octagon or not, but I guess he was going to throw the fight for Oleg so he'd be fresh against me. But whatever, it is what it is. He won the fight, but there's a lot of backstory to all the early UFCs that people aren't really privy to. But I was there, and I'm the purveyor of truth, and I know what happened. And they manipulated the fights so Oleg would be fresh. And I fought the 2 biggest guys at the time in the tournament, and I was there in the finals, and we made it over 14 minutes, fighting our way in a real fight, not some technique thing. Technique does not make you tough. You can learn everything under the sun, and you're not going to be a tough guy. Sorry, all you dilettantes out there. And, you know, jiu-jitsu by far is the easiest thing to learn, because what are you going to do? Slap the mat? There's no pain involved. So all the little jiu-jitsu guys out there run around and pretend that it's a solve-all, but it's a waste of money if you're not tough to begin with. Some tough guys that I trained with in jiu-jitsu: John Marsh, hell of a guy. He's up in South Bay, Hermosa Beach area. Tough guy, tough as nails. Trained with him, showed me a lot at jiu-jitsu, and rolled with him quite a bit, and put my game up high in jiu-jitsu defense. I'm not really one to roll around on my back and try to squeeze my legs around your neck and stuff like that. It's not it's not really something I'm into.
It's more fun to hit people than trying to smite them anyway.
Oh yes, and then, you know, back in the day, believe it or not, there's a bunch of assholes in California, but they all thought they were tough, and so the guys that always walk around all roided out of their heads, they would be in the bar, and I guess you get roid rage or something like that. Like, you know, they get all crazy mad over little things. They were my targets, not so much. I would get into their area, and sooner or later they would bump into me and try to intimidate me by their size or what have you. And once you punch them right in the face, everything goes out the window at that point in time, and that's when the fight starts. And a lot of people learned their bad behavior has karma that comes back and pays them back when they're fighting me back in the day. But as far as training and being a fighter and technique, all this kind of stuff. Come on, I wrestled since I was 9 years old. I've trained with world champions, NCAA champions, everything else, and I've held my own right next to them, takedown after takedown, right back and forth. Wasn't like I was some fish flopping out in the mat and they were taking it to me. I held my own with them, and that's it. I was, they knew who I was, let's put it that way. It wasn't fighting, it was wrestling, and that's what they got. God, I'm rambling on. That's all right, makes for...
Now, on another subject, before I forget, you mentioned to me you'd seen some of Ken Patera's shoot interviews. As you know, he's a very popular subject on my channel. Do you have any thoughts on him? I know you met him too.
Oh, yeah, you know, I met him at ICP thing that they had. What do they call it? The Gathering.
Of the Juggalos,
Yes. I enjoy ICP. I like their music and everything else.
They're on your bike.
Oh yeah, I got their stickers, the Joker stickers on my fairing of my Harley. But I was there, and you know, we were going back and forth from the hotel and the arena and stuff like that. And I got on the van with him, and I was like, "Yeah, who's this old timer?" And I said, "Hey, you know, what's going on?" And he goes, "Oh," and he alluded to or introduced himself as Ken Patera. And I was like, whoa, my kind of guy, you know. He has his little legendary stories of jumping in the counter or what have you at McDonald's, Burger King, or whatever. He told me the story somewhat. And I was very in love with the fact that somebody was out there doing real things that I have done. I've actually, when I was younger, climbed through the drive-through window after some smart-ass guy, and often thought how it was, I wasn't motivated by Ken Patera doing that, but it was just some big mouth behind the order counter that needed to be dealt with. I didn't get my hands on him though, but I'd like to know what he did to my food. So
now, as far as Tito Ortiz 2021, we've already heard his name last year. I guess he had that fight with Alberto Del Rio. Then he also had a WWE tryout that I guess he wasn't hired from, which is a bit surprising, because they take people with a lot less credentials than Tito, but I guess he didn't quite make it. But what are your thoughts on everything that's been going on with him the past year?
Oh, I am in complete amazement. You know, people don't know, but I got him into the show. His very first fight, he fought on some alternate match, and they needed somebody because somebody pulled out, and so they threw him in there, and he was like a scared little puppy. He actually started crying, and one of my guys that I used to hang out with, still do, he's a warrior at heart, little guy, but that doesn't change the way he thinks. He slapped him across the face and said, "Quit your crying, you're gonna get out there and you just go out there and treat it like a wrestling match." And he slapped some sense into him, and he went out and beat up some little yahoo that shouldn't have been there, another like Anthony Macias clown. Anyway, so he went out there and beat him, but he turned into the true colors of somebody's character comes out, and turned into a scumbag. And people always say, "Oh, why are you so bitter about Tito Ortiz?" I mean, you know, I'm not really so bitter, but I have personal interaction with the guy. He was training up as Bakersfield, and he basically went into my truck after asking me to borrow $500 from me. I didn't have it, and I said, "Sorry, if I had it, I'd give it to you." But I was up there wrestling with Stephen Neal, who is an absolute animal. He went off to play professional football, and he was the heavyweight champion then. And so I was like a blessing in disguise. Who gets to roll with the NCAA champ and top-notch guy? So I was rolling with him for a couple of weeks, and it was a good time. But I walk out after practice. We kept going, and then I walk out, and Tito's in my truck. And I used to drive the kid around, and he played the victim. That's his big thing. He's, poor me, victim. Do you know I was homeless type? My parents were losers. Oh, they were drug addicts and all this kind of stuff. He's just, anybody that plays the victim role is just a con man, liar. He's a modern day Beowulf, pretending that he's a warrior and everything else, but the truth comes to it. He's just in it for the glory and the riches. So ends up, I would drive him around, and he was always looking through my shit in the truck, and he would go in my glove compartment, my side compartments. Well, he must have seen I had an empty checkbook in there, and he went into the glove compartment. All you little Tito lover fans, this is the kind of scumbag he is. Took a check out of it, put it in there. When I walk up to my truck, I go, "Hey dude, what are you doing in my truck?" This is after practice. And he's, "Oh, it's cold. I just wanted to say goodbye to you guys." I was with Paul Herrera at the time. And Paul's all, "Wow, Tito, what are you doing in this truck?" And he's like, "Oh, ha ha." Well, back in the days, before you got computer printouts, they returned your cashed checks. So a month later, I fought Hugo Duarte, had a good time, was going through my checks. And there's one for his brother. I'm not sure about his family lineage, but his mother had brothers or children with other people, and so they're brothers. I don't know if that makes you a half brother. It doesn't really matter. But he wrote a check out to his name. I'll leave the name out of it. And I was like, I thought it was for $500, and it was the day after he asked me for the money. So he took the check out of my glove compartment from his previous snooping. He knew there was a checkbook in there. He wrote it out to his brother and cashed it the next day. So not was it like a crime of opportunity. He had a chance to go home and sit on it and pretend and think it over, mull it over, like, am I really that much of a scumbag that I'm going to take a check out of some guy that tried to help me out? I was trying to help the kid out. And cash it with his brother. I mean, desperation drives desire, but my Lord. And so at that point in time, I cut waves with him. And then there's another joker that tried to pretend like he was my manager, and he took him in. He always wanted to start all this stuff with me, like, let's do a clothing line, let's do this, let's do that. I'm like, no, that's not what I'm in it for, bro. I'm a warrior at heart. And with all those kind of characteristics of honesty, courageous, integrity, all those kind of things, that's what makes me tick. I'm not like a scumbag like that, but this guy was, and those two got together, and they would go to, no one even knew who he was. It wasn't even on TV, I don't believe. It might have been, they might have showed a clip of it. And he's pretending he's superstar, and they would go sign autographs in a trailer out in front of high school wrestling tournaments. And I'm like going, what does this clown think he is? And Eddie, my friend, is like, that guy doesn't know any shame whatsoever. And it's a true statement. And Eddie he's not one to mince words. But so that was the birth of this Tito explosion of trash, biological trash, fucking stealing not only checkbooks or checks out of my checkbook, but air from good, honest people. I mean, he is a dirtbag. And if you think I'm bitter, that's your problem. That's the truth. And yeah, you would be bitter too if I sat and I stole something of yours. He used to call me because he'd know I'd be down at the bar on Main Street. It's a good 10-minute thing. He'd call me at the bar, make sure I was there. Then he'd go over to my house and pilfer through all my stuff. He'd take things and like my booze and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, it was not worth me to get all worked up over. That's hard for me to do. But that's the kind of scumbag he is. So you guys can all worship him and go vote for him. For Huntington Beach, it used to be a great town. It's turned into a piece of shit with a bunch of fucking assholes that live there. And I'm here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where everybody here is cool and they're awesome people. And I'm glad I made the move. How's that for a roundabout way to one question?
Now, I'm working with a company now called SWE Fury. They're on TV in about 35 million homes. But just because I work with them, would you ever consider having a pro wrestling match with Tito Ortiz in a company like SWE Fury or another company? I know you guys don't like each other, and you never know what could happen at a pro wrestling match, but would you ever accept something like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, only because I don't know how professional I would be with him. I would love to knock the stuffing out of that guy. But yeah, no, he's not a very bright guy. I think everybody knows that. And I don't know if I would want to get into the ring with a dummy like that. I mean...
What did you think of his wrestling skills, by the way, the couple of clips that he showed? And I saw the YouTube video, too. He was training with Norman Smiley, an old buddy of yours.
Oh, yeah. Good for Tito. I mean, WWE, I've never met Vince, and I've met a few of the talent agents and people like that. And they're not lining up to sign guys that has children with a porno star. And you know what? I think there's Paul Herrera told me about this. There's a video of homemade video of Tito. It's called Rug Burns. It's floating around. I've said that I would love to get my hands on. There's these guys, they used to hang around downtown, and Tito was a hanger-on kind of guy of these people, and he's a star in his own little porno called Rug Burns that used to be passed around all the time. Remember those days, Tito? And it's floating around, so maybe, just maybe someday that'll pop up on the scene. But so you got that kind of porno stuff, and then you got his criminal record, right? They can't open it, but the guy's been arrested numerous times. Me personally, I know of things. I had a meeting with the UFC before Dana came along, and one of the executives of the company came and visited me at the bar. It was kind of a meeting, but not really a meeting. It was a chit-chat, get-together, let's kind of make, touch base kind of thing. So Tito hears that I'm doing that, and he comes up out of nowhere and sits down right in between us. I'm like, hey, dude, I'm having a meeting here, conversation. Get your dumb ass out of here. He's like trying to weasel his way into this thing here. Lo and behold, the bar across the street has a parking garage behind it. Comes walking in, the manager from the bar comes walking into the bar across the street and goes, hey man, your boy right here just stole a bag of golf clubs out of a trunk of a car over there. And the guy's pissed off, and because you know him, we didn't turn him in. You think you could take those golf clubs and turn them into lost and found at the parking garage? And I'm sitting there with the executive having a business meeting going, oh my God, what kind of scumbag is this guy? And what is the executive guy looking at me like I'm part of this team of once again, scum, no character whatsoever. He does not have one. There's like 9 characteristics of a warrior and a thing. He doesn't have one of them. He's the antithesis of a warrior, and he's a con man, and everybody believes his bullshit. And then they're gonna kick him off of city council within a couple months as pro tem mayor. He gets up there and does his crocodile tear bullshit, like, oh, I just love my job. Everybody's onto you, Tito. Your little con man bullshit of sleeping under the pier in Newport on cardboard box. Oh, at the same breath as you have every wrestling doll from whatever action figure dolls they have of every top guy they had with Tito Santana and all this stuff, like you're Mexican. They're gonna have somebody like that come into the WWE. I don't think Vince or anybody else would want like a porno guy with a record of thievery in his past. And every organization, he's kicked out of the UFC. I'm pretty sure he's kicked out of Bellator. All why? Because they got to know the real person he is. So all you people that have fantasies, you're dilettantes about who Tito is, why don't you do some real research and find out who he really is before you start backing him and saying all this stuff and claiming that I'm bitter. I'm just the purveyor of truth. Tell you how it is. You don't like it? Whatever. I'll tell you about fights that I lost. I'll tell you why, if I showed up at the same shape I was in UFC 6, how these guys that I would have fought would have been easily taken care of. But I'm a warrior, man. You call me up against all odds, I'll show up. I'm a man of my word, and I'll fight. I don't care about the outcome. It's about the fight. It's about getting in there and fighting. It's not like, oh, you got to protect my record. You talk about these guys that fight. Why do you think I fought on short notice? I didn't fight on short notice with Don Fry, but any other fights? Maurice Smith for the championship, okay? No one would fight him. You think I was in the number 1 top list? Don Fry says I was their prize pony of the show. I was the most popular of the show. I was top UFC dog. I mean, not because I was pushed or told to be pushed. It was because I was honest and true. I was a true warrior. Not these phony guys that fight nowadays and even back then just so everybody would know them as fighters. I was what they were trying to be, and everybody could see that. Yeah, is Hoist Gracie a tough guy? He's got some warrior in him. Sure the hell does. You want to go down the list? I'll tell you. Hey, that guy's a tough guy. Mark Coleman's a tough guy.
What do you think about Mark Coleman, anyways? Because I know he watches this channel, and I'm curious what you think of him.
First run-in I had with but introduction with Mark was at a bar, believe it or not, and he was fighting, and God knows, I've had strokes and my memory isn't good, and then whatever, but it was at a fight show, and I was in the hotel bar, and he came down, and he got some kind of mixed drink, and I go, "You drinking before the fight, bro?" And he goes, "No, it's like a virgin thing." I said, "Well, I go, take it easy, man. It's just like a wrestling match. Don't get yourself all worked up." I go, "You a piece of cake, because I'm a wrestler at heart." And I go, "You'll dominate. You'll go out there and take care of things." And he went out and did his business. And I've always liked Mark. He's been cool. He's a warrior. He's a stand-up guy. He's not a phony Yahoo like this business is filled with. Everybody wants to be known as a fighter because of the accolades and everything that goes along with it. I'm a warrior, a true warrior at my heart, and there's very few warriors that fight in the UFC. They're all prima donnas nowadays. They get a stubbed toe and they can't fight. Oh, what the fuck are we gonna do? Oh, let's call Tank Abbott. He'll fucking fight. He doesn't care. that's how shit went down back in those days. And so for people to sit around and say, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Mark Coleman would be a guy like that. He wouldn't say, yeah, I'm up, I'm ready to go. So yeah, Mark's a good guy.
Is
as
it
far
true?
as Warriors go.
Is it true you almost got into it with Eminem at one point over ICP, something to do with ICP?
No, it's not true at all. I all by happenstance. I didn't even know they had beefs with each other and whatever, but I actually went there as a fan. And this could be, I'm shady on this, no pun intended. Anyways, I think it was at the Hard Rock on Sunset, but man, I got a liver transplant, man. I used to be a funaholic, man. I get down, I drink like none other. Not too many people survived what I put my body through, but I was there and he was performing and he unwrapped some big, there was like a mummy on the stage and it was some big time actor. It was an alright show. It was a misdirected cocktail empty glass thing that I flung towards the stage, hit him, accident. I apologize to Eminem if he thought I did it on purpose. It was by accident. And that was it. It was not a big deal. And then I guess I got sucked into the ICP thing, and which I enjoy their music, and got pulled into it, but none of it's like true or anything like that. I'll tell you if it was.
What's your favorite song of ICP?
Well, the song that hooked me was "I Want My Shit." Fat chick. Was it a fat chick named Bridget or something like that?
Yeah.
There's 4 things before I die. I want to wash the axe. I gotta stop.
Now
I gotta know voodoo.
You
A
mentioned
fat chick named Bridget.
you mentioned that there's some people that want to portray themselves as fighters for the accolades and stuff. Is there more groupies and stuff as a fighter or as a pro wrestler?
Pro wrestler. Definitely pro wrestling. Pro wrestling circuit is if you're at the big leagues, pro wrestling circuit, which everybody aspires to get to, is awesome. It's just like a traveling rock show, like a band, and you go work out in the morning, early afternoon, go do your show and party all night.
Who was the biggest partier in wrestling out of them all that you met?
Oh, I was kind of the tip of the spear in my realm of things, but I like Knobs, Brian Knobs.
Yeah,
he was fun to party with. You know, everybody. I think as long as you didn't take yourself too serious, you were there just to have fun and party. That's what it was like.
What about Lex Luger? He was a bit of a partier at one point before you.
I guess, but I'd never ever seen Lex. You know, everybody in my experience with professional wrestling was, for the majority, cool guys. That I got introduced to social media after I got out of the hospital. So Paul Herrera put me on Instagram, and then I kind of followed about that. And then you have the YouTube channels and stuff, and then you have the people that really don't like people. And I try to like people, but Lex Luger was not some guy that I liked. And I'm not alone in that fact. A lot of people didn't like him, and I found that through social media and some other. I'm telling you, wrestlers on one hand that I didn't really like, because I minded my own business. I wasn't anybody's stuff, and I tried to not be political. But Terry Taylor, another guy, was a Yahoo, full-on Yahoo. Just those two only poke out at me.
What was your interactions like with Terry Taylor?
See, here's the thing. This is where it could be a rub, and then maybe he didn't like me, but I used to have a word, and I still do now and then, for thingamajig. Like, hand me that thingamajig, over at that thingamajig. And it used to be rooster. I say, hey, hand me that rooster over there. Hey, get that rooster over there. Oh, we're going to the rooster over there. And I would say it quite often. And unbeknownst to me, Terry Taylor was the whatever, the red rooster or whatever.
Oh yeah.
And so Vince, I guess, would make him dance around like a rooster, and that's what he was known for. And I think that he didn't want to be known for that gimmick. But so then here I come up, and I pop up on the party scene, and hey, hand me the rooster over there, and he would turn around real quick like I was ribbing him, and it had nothing to do with it. And then he would kind of rib me back, like booking things, like travel. I want to go somewhere. I want to do this. Nope, you got to go to the power plant and learn how to train and wrestle. And it was at that point in time, look, I'm not going to be the next Chris Benoit and be some awesome technical wrestler. That's not my gimmick. I'm there to punch you, knock you out, and make a name for being a badass, not for being a technical wrestler. So that being that, he would say, oh, you need to go work on your wrestling. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to be doing, I can run the ropes, I can do this and that, I'm not going to be doing no high-flying stuff. And so there were some run-ins, some resentment, but, I'm at the point where I'm just want to be comfortable in life, and that's all that matters. And so even back then it was like, oh, you want to be that way, be that way. It's not something that I care to waste my energy about.
How do you think Terry Taylor's had a job for all these years? He still works for WWE, just a good politician?
Well, that's the only explanation, I would imagine. I don't think people like him that much, according to social media. But hey, that's whatever. It works for him, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I can tell you, I thought about Terry Taylor maybe 5 times in the last couple of years. And that's only at the behest of someone bringing up his name.
How did you find the cliques backstage in WCW? Did you join any, or were you kind of neutral?
Oh, no. I'm Tank, the one-man band, man. Everybody has their cliques. Everybody hung out, and at face value, which is all that matters, they were all nice to me, all cool to me. I didn't care what their politics were. As long as they were cool to me and they wanted to have a drink. I used to, I usually get relegated to the late Mean Gene Okerlund, and we would sit at the bar and just have a good time. Mean Gene was fun. That guy was a cool character.
Are you surprised Goldberg's had the long run that he's had? I know you knew him from back in those days.
Not surprised, but Bill's Bill. I mean, those animals in that jungle, the big cats do their business, and who knows what gets over. I mean, you would think there's a bunch of Bill Goldbergs out there, but Bill's the man. He does his little spirit, and it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that he's still out and about doing his thing.
How would Bill have done in MMA? He never got the offer that tempted him enough.
Well, hey, this isn't a rub against Bill, but he's not a warrior. I got into professional wrestling after I felt secure enough to know that everybody knew that I can kick ass. I don't know why that's important to me. Probably because, you know what? Anybody, I treat everybody with respect, but no one's going to treat me with disrespect. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And if you want to find that out the hard way, you'll find it out the hard way. And it is what it is, but it all goes back to being a warrior, and I wanted to be a warrior, and I am a warrior, and all the way down to I had to do UFC first. My last book of the trilogy is done, and Walter Fox, after he fought in UFC 6, goes to the bash on the beach, and he goes and meets with some bigwigs of the wrestling company there, and Walter Fox wasn't ready to do professional wrestling. He still had to make his name in fighting. And so the lure of money and fame and all that kind of stuff wasn't even a factor in Walter's life. Walter wanted to be a warrior, and not wanted to be, Walter was a warrior and still is a warrior, and that is important to him. That's not, that, if you could define Walter, he's a warrior, and it's very important to him to be known as a warrior. He's not, like I said, back to Beowulf, he's not in it for the riches and the glory. He's in it just to go put his head on a pillow late at night and say, that's right, I'm that guy.
Now, Paul Varelans died recently. You fought him. Any thoughts on that fight and his passing?
First of all, his passing's terrible. This COVID thing, and God, no one needs to lose their life before their time, but that's awful, and my condolences go out to his family and everything else and his friends. Paul was the typical big offensive lineman. He could have been a big offensive lineman for the NFL. And I played football pretty much a long time. Grew up in a football family. My dad was a football career coach, and football was the almighty. But big offensive linemen that should know their place. Just because you're big doesn't mean you're tough. And he kind of was shoving his weight around at the UFC, and I actually saw him at a nightclub and chuckled. And go, oh my God, that guy's going to get in. He's going to get a beating if we meet up. And we met up, and he got a beating. That was a whole different thing. The UFC is not what it is today. It's got rules now. It has everything, and it's great, and everybody thinks they can be a participant. All these little guys somewhere should go find out who invented the weight scale to give themselves some importance in life. I mean, you can't play with the big boys, and so you might as well get a scale, and if we weigh the same, we can fight each other. But yeah, so weight classes and all that kind of stuff is just, it is what it is.
What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor's last fight? He lost to Poirier. He wasn't talking trash before the fight. Do you think that had anything to do with the loss? He wasn't able to really get in the other guy's head? Or?
No, I don't think, like, anybody can talk trash to me and say whatever they want, and God knows they have. I have mixed reviews on Conor McGregor. He's a little guy, first of all, which means nothing. And the more that I've exposed myself to him, he seems to be a warrior, and which is cool in the sense. But he's pint-sized, and mind you, the premise of the UFC at the beginning was the baddest guy in the world, walking the streets, doing whatever, be a martial artist or just some guy, a wrestler, or they're all martial arts, but that was the premise. Who's the baddest guy on the thing? And like I said, all these little guys, so they could participate, they should go find out who invented the scale and say, oh, thank you, now you've provided us a sense of participation and wannabe tough guy stuff. But Conor McGregor seems to be a warrior in his soul or his makeup, but that doesn't make him tough. It's kind of back in the days when Sugar Ray Leonard and Marvin Hagler and all those guys were boxing at I don't know, the little guy weight. Anyways, and then it's like, oh, what do you think he would do against, I can't remember who was Larry Holmes or something like that. Larry Holmes would knock him across the ring with an up jab, kind of like I did with Don Fry. But Don Fry, fuck Don Fry. I saw that on your last show. Fuck Tank Abbott. I have to say, my wife woke me up in bed and I watched it and laughed myself back into dreamland. I didn't know Don was so angry, and God, I like Don Fry. He's a warrior. I mean, he gets out and does his thing. I didn't come up with it. He shot over the bow with me, saying that, I kick his ass and all this kind of stuff. What the hell? I just wrote it off. He's in the hospital bed, and I know what it's like to be in the hospital. So he was maybe having an off day or something, but he shot over the bow. All I did was regurgitate what I heard not from, but about Big John McCarthy. He's the one that said he got paid Mark Hall to take a dive. I mean, like I said, I fancy myself as a true warrior. If I was to walk out in the cage and Paul Herrera was standing on the other side of the thing, I got no fight, my friend. Are you kidding me? And so he goes out there and fights a guy. That's on you, Don. You're the one to fight. You could have turned around and said, no, I'm not fighting this guy. That's all on you. I just don't hate the messenger. I'm just repeating what they said. And so you shot over my bow. I'm just laying the things out there. It's the same way with Oleg Tiktarov. Like I told you, that little bitch Anthony Macias. I can't even believe. Obviously, it looks like he shaved his legs and everything. He should have walked out with pumps and fucking makeup on. But hey, Mark Hall. Like I said, straight shooter. Looking at it. Mark Hall took a dive for you, Don. I don't know if you paid him or not. It doesn't matter. That's what it looks like. That's all I'm saying.
Dan Severin recently did an interview with me, and I think you saw that clip. He doesn't hate you or anything, but he said he had an issue with you over, I guess, hitting a guy after you already knocked him out.
Yeah. No, I saw that actually. Well, Dan might have a skewed point of view, but that's all right. I'm in a fight. It was not like I knocked this guy out and I walked over to the side of the cage and turned around and saw him laying there and I ran across the ring and punched him in the face. We were still in action, and regardless, you don't have time to stop and think and go, oh, he's knocked out, while you're flying through the air to attack him. So if he interprets me kicking back and getting a second thought like, oh, I'm going to go kick him, he's already knocked out, or punch him, that's not what happened. It was in the middle of a fight, and I'm charged, and I'm from the streets, and you better take care of business. And that was the period at the end of the sentence. and or should I say exclamation point of the sentence. So Dan can say that, but I understand how he could think that, but it wasn't a premeditated thought. It was full action, and that's, hey, we're all grown men and we know exactly what we're getting into, and if he would have done that to me, I wouldn't hold a grudge on it. That's what I fucking bargained for. And that goes back to the street fighting days. Everybody thought they were tough guys back then. And you know what? I went to jail for it because some guy thought he was tough and he got his ass handed to him, and then, change the rules. It's like these new millennial guys. You can't touch me. Oh my Lord. That's not how it was back in the day. Back before there was any of this UFC stuff. It was after my first show in the fight. I was so surprised. Yahoo after Yahoo that I knew thought that they could come up and give me fighting advice that I've known for years, all through high school and afterwards. Never been in a fight in their lives. They're going to give me fighting tips on how to beat somebody up. I was like, are you kidding me? It was shocking to me how many Yahoos, and now they've turned it almost into a science. All these Yahoos that watch these videos and fact finders stuff. Oh, look at him, he's gassed. Well, hell yeah, I was gassed. I was on a bar stool 2 days earlier. And why am I fighting? Because all the other pussies, wannabe warriors, wouldn't show up, wouldn't fight. I would. That was the difference. So they can make all their little excuses, and I think these people live vicariously through other fighters. Like, that's what I would do. I know jiu-jitsu. I'll tie them up in knots. Well, it's nothing more than a martial art pussyville. You start to get hurt, you tap on the mat. Oh, okay, let's stop right now. There's no stopping in a real fight. You're going to get your face, you're going to eat a punch. You're going to eat hands. And that's what these kids and all these yahoos want to sit there and analyze fights. You don't even know the backstory to any of these fights. I mean, you're talking about jiu-jitsu now. Everybody going to bring up Frank Mir or something like that? First of all, I shouldn't even been in the cage. I called Dana weeks before, told him I couldn't fight. But because I am a warrior, I said, you know what? I will show up, but don't expect anything. And that's what they got, not a thing. I went out there, did my thing. My head was 3,000 miles away to my house in Huntington Beach, dealing with emotional issues that were not something that had anything to do with fighting. Shouldn't have even been in the ring, but being a warrior that I am, I went there and fought. And I dare all you guys watching this, all you haters out there, go ahead and say that I'm not a warrior. If you say that I'm not a warrior, you don't even know what a warrior is. And everybody that ever met me will tell you, yeah, that guy's for real and will get you and whatever.
Now, as far as Boss Rutan, he told the story to me about an airport incident that allegedly occurred with you. You say this never happened.
No, that's the absolute truth. I mean, listen, after my strokes and after my health issues in the last 2 or 3 years, there's things that I got completely confused on, like, what UFC I was in, that kind of issues. That's understandable. But this is way before any of my health issues. Boss Rutan, I've never even seen that clown. That guy's a clown. You know what? You talk about a warrior and you're changing the premise from the baddest guy on the planet walking this earth and walk into a bar, walk into a restaurant, pull over at the side of a intersection and throw down. That kind of fighting. That's where I come from. And Boss Rutan, all these guys, Boss Rutan is a joke. The only run-in that I ever had with him, I went to did some of his high definition show. I was supposed to fight Ken Shamrock like 3 times. I was supposed to fight what's his name, Vinny Perarelli or something like that.
Yeah, his real name, I don't even remember.
It's Vinny Perarelli or something like. Anyways, I was supposed to fight him 3 different times, and did he show up? No, he's always had a hurt hand. He pulls out all the time. This time he got tested positive for steroids. He's another poser, fake, phony, wannabe. He's accolades from being a tough guy. Come on, he's whatever. He's a shamrock. He comes from a troubled kid, challenged kid home of that Bob Shamrock guy. So he's a shamrock, and that should say something right there. Who's the other shamrock? That guy's a scumbag too. That guy, seriously, him and Tito should have a dumb off to see who's dumber. Although, I mean, that guy, you know, I don't know if you know this or not, but surfing around this thing, he tied a dog, poor like little bud right here sleeping next to me. He tied him in the back of a pickup truck and left him at the airport for a weekend. I mean, what kind of scumbag does that? I mean, that guy's such a Frank Suarez. That guy's an idiot. That's one guy that I engaged in a conversation with at a fighter convention thing, and stopped myself from listening to this nonsense babble, and I just walked off and go, wow. And that guy knows how to breathe air. It was unbelievable. But yeah, he's a shamrock. So Shamrock pulled out 3 different times. So I'm sorry I went off on my little word there. Boss is doing this high definition to push this fight with Shamrock, and Shamrock tests positive for steroids. Back to Boss rooting in his little high definition fighter show, whatever it was, and he's got all these stooges in the control room, thinking that he's the baddest guy on the planet. And that guy, he made his name for doing pancrase, which is nothing more than a bunch of professional wrestlers that are pussies that don't want to hit each other, so they agree to slap fight in a wrestling ring, and then they put these big pillows on their shins so they don't hurt each other, and kick and stuff, and that's his claim to fame, a pancrase pussy that goes to Japan. And then he rides with that like I'm Mr. Tough Guy, and then he starts the show and he starts to talk to me, and I'm totally confused here. You are running around telling people you're the baddest man on the planet, and all the stooges in here believe you, and I'm sitting at like a control desk, and you right there, you're like the biggest pussy there is. I go, what's your claim to fame? I go, you fought in the UFC. All I know is you fought Kevin Randleman, and Kevin Randleman kicked your ass. And the only reason why you won is because the first show, and mind you, I could be off with tidbits, you little fact finders out there. The first show that had referees, and they decided in your fashion, after you just got your ass kicked by Randleman. I mean, that guy ate your lunch and breakfast and dinner, and just because you're going to be like some the next Bruce Lee, I'm glad you have an acting career, because that's all you are, is an actor, and I guess you get to practice that every day. But now you're telling stories about me in an airport and talking about my one ab with my big fat gut and all that stuff. So I never ate steroids like you obviously had, because you don't grow a forehead like that by drinking buttermilk. And point is, I shut him down. You ruined the UFC by bringing in referees, and they job the Kevin Randleman. There's a little window from UFC 5 to whenever that show number was, where there was some real fighting going on, no conflict of interest in anybody's thing. And then it's evolved to what it is today, and good for Dana, good for the show, and good for all you kids that are sport fighters, not real warriors, not some guy you want to go march around in the jungle with in Vietnam, but some yahoo that was a clerk desk hand in Vietnam and Hanoi or whatever, not Hanoi, but one of those cities there. I don't want to get into it. Ho Chi Minh City is nowadays, but and then come back here and say you're some combat warrior. I've seen many people do that, and it makes me sick. But they're not warriors. They're all phonies. And Boss Rutan is an actor and a phony, telling stories that never even happened. And then someone's like, "Oh yeah, let's talk about the story," and then you wish-wash it around, and he goes, "I don't want to talk bad about people." Hey, what do you mean? You're stumbling over your own words because you can't think of a story that is going to make sense because it never happened. And this is another yahoo, that Pat Miletich bozo. Granted, the bar's not very high to be a fighter in intelligence, and Pat is not obviously one guy that's going to be a Rhodes Scholar, but he's another yahoo. Yeah. Oh, let's see here. Tank Abbott, who fights in bars and on the street at a drop of a hat for anything, that would stand up and fight on short notice and injured and everything else, would run from Pat Miletich's he's trying out for an elf for a Disney movie.
I'm just gonna make this a little bit higher. Because I'm gonna add in the fan questions, but that's pretty funny stuff. Is there anything we missed that you wanted me to bring up?
I'm trying to think. I Kentera quite a bit. See the word now. You're going to steal that. No, what are you talking about? Never mind.
Who do you think's going to win the Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou fight, or have you been paying attention to that?
No, but I know who Ngannou is, and he looks like he's pretty tough. I haven't seen him under pressure though.
And the winner of that's supposed to go up against John Jones.
Yeah, John Jones is. Okay, you can go into that. That'd be. I want, because I'd like to get some sideways ribs on Rampage, fighting Fedor.
When's that happening?
That already happened.
Okay.
He got knocked out like in 10 seconds, and Rampage is like fatter and shit. I'm not even gonna say his name. I'm just gonna. All these guys think. Oh yeah, you can talk about light heavyweights.
All right, well, we're going to add some live fan questions in now. Fans watching this, I am going to post a high-quality version of this later. This is just a cell phone version, so I can get your questions in. But in a couple of weeks, there'll be a high-quality version up. So we're with WCW and UFC legend Tank Abbott here. Let's start this off. What do you think about John Jones going up to heavyweight, and supposedly he's going to be fighting the winner of Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou?
Yeah, you know what? Be honest with you, I don't watch those fights and all that kind of stuff, but obviously I heard a lot of stuff about John Jones, and from what I hear, he seems like he's the real deal, and everybody says like he's the greatest of all time, the GOAT thing. You know what? But at the end of the day, you can't. I don't know, and I could be completely wrong. Maybe he's naturally a big guy, but as a light heavyweight, the oxymoron of that is so appropriate. You can't get fat and become a heavyweight. I mean, okay, other fighters have tried that, and it hasn't worked out too well for them. You know, so who look at Randy Couture fighting Brock Lesnar. That didn't work out too good for Randy. Brock handed him the size difference rather quickly. I was there, and I didn't even realize I was at the fight. So that'll tell you how much I paid attention to it. And then there's other fighters that went over and fought Fedor in Japan, and we all saw what happened with that happen. You can't just go out and get fat and say I'm a heavyweight. It helps to be naturally strong and be that size.
Victor Murphy has a question for you. He wants to know how your health is going, and he says he was a big fan of you in WCW.
Oh, you know what, man? I've been on a long, long road for 2.5 years, and not too many people, according to my physicians and doctors and surgeons, all synonymous, but I'm a miracle. Not too many people have come back from what I've been through, actually literally being dead on the table, and to the point where I am now with strokes. It's like being trapped in a cloudy bottle. Like you can't get out, but inside you're all fucked up, but you know there's an outside there. And I'm finally breaking through that glass and feeling good. And much to the dismay of a lot of people, because I'm running my mouth off. But hey, truth is the truth.
The Lions Den Gaming wants to know, how does UFC take care of its legends?
Oh, I don't think they do take care of their legends. They've never really done anything for me. I mean, but it's not their job. I've never asked for anything. Anything I've ever asked for from Dana, he's given me, but I never asked for anything. So,
do you think they're going to put you in the Hall of Fame?
I don't know. And when I got sick, I was wishy-washy, strokeage wise. And if they decide to put me in, great. There was like a desire of mine to want to be in, maybe because my death experience, and it kind of had a paradigm shift. But I'm kind of getting back to an even keel. If they want to put me in, that would be an honor. But if they don't, it wasn't meant to be.
During those times where you were clinically dead, did you have any experiences about spirituality or anything?
I absolutely did. I obviously, you don't know you died, but there was a point where I want to say out of body, but I was on my back floating, and I was floating away from my sense of my body, my physical body. I was floating away in a area that was like a space, and I was floating away, and I was like, and the further I was floating away, the more it was like I was going into a bath of feel-good water, and I was going up my body, and then all of a sudden, metaphorically, my eyes popped open and said, wait a minute, what the hell's going on here? I don't know if hell is the right word, but I said, no, I'm not going, no. And then I could feel myself floating away, floating back to where I had a physical sense. And then I got back to that point, and metaphorically, it was like I took a deep breath, and I went, and then it happened again. And same scenario, And then this time I had more vigor of like, no, 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 no. And I got back and I did a nice, really deep breath. Like I knew at that point, okay, I'm good now. And that was my, if you call it out of body experience, because my body wasn't floating, it was more of a presence.
So are you more comfortable with the thought of passing away now?
Yes, yeah. Absolutely. Like, doesn't bother me whatsoever. Where you go somewhere, God knows where, but I'll tell you one thing. What put me to that point was alcohol, and just out of respect and being a warrior, the people that donated their organs to me, I'm not going to put them at risk or jeopardy. But the first thing I'm going to do, wherever I go on the other side, is have a drink. I'm going to get really drunk, too.
John Stewart wants to know your favorite part about working with the Insane Clown Posse.
You know what was strange back in those days is I didn't know who the Juggalos were. Or the Juggalos or ICP, Shaggy and Violent J. I didn't know who they were. I was lost without my Juggaloism. So they were cool. They were, they kept to themselves. It was hi bye, see you later, whatever. But after I got into I want my shit, I was obviously had a good buzz rolling, and I go, wait a minute. Next thing you know, I started listening to their music, and I was like, holy, holy, holy. And whoop, whoop. I actually went to their gathering where I saw Ken Patera there, and I was still not clued in to the Juggalo lifestyle, but I shortly thereafter got immersed into Juggaloism, and whoop whoop, tear it up.
Brian Briggs wants to know if you're friends with Scott Forenzo now.
I talked to him on the phone. He said he was going to come out here, and I don't have any friends, so except for this guy right here. Wake up. This is my only friend. Ferozzo called me and said he wanted to visit, go out to dinner. I'm like, sure, I'm down for it. I don't have any ill thoughts about him. He's a warrior. There's a guy right there. I'm not talking about physical attributes or anything like that, but that guy's down to fight. How many people, right? How many people? I flew across the nation to Ohio to go fight some guy that's a willing participant that wanted to fight me, and he fought, and we fought in the backyard, and we threw down, and we had a good time, and we whatever. There's a backstory to that fight too. So
you weren't paid for that either, were you? In the end, they ripped you off.
No, absolutely not. Brian Grooms, who's a person that I know. Like I said, I don't have friends, but he is a guy, a stand-up dude. Brian Grooms out of Miamisburg, Ohio, which is in the outside of Dayton. Hell of a guy. He's through the roof, and he put it down. And no, there was no shenanigans whatsoever. I got paid.
Okay. Josh wants to know, how was your tag team with Rick Steiner?
Sure, Rick's a tough guy, and sure, it was a good time. He's kind of showing me the ropes of professional wrestling and kind of steering me the right way. When I wrestled the Mexican cat with the skeleton suit, what's his name? La Parca. I go, hey, Rick, they got me fighting La Parca. I go, what should I do? He goes, knock the fuck out of him. I go, really? He goes, yeah, knock the fuck out of him. So I took his advice, and I don't know if you've seen that match with me and La Parca, but I knocked the fuck out of him.
I'll have to look that one up. William wants to know if you could tell us about your training with Alan Gross prior to UFC 8 fight in the stands.
Alon goes, yes. He was, we found out, mind you, there is no MMA, and I've heard other people say this stuff. I came up with MMA, all right? Mixed martial arts. I'll claim it, and all you fact finders out there run around, but you weren't around, you don't even know. So they didn't have gyms. And so in the boxing gym in Westminster, it was old school boxing gym, like ones you see on Rocky and stuff like that. That's where I cut my teeth, and I trained with some top-notch trainers. Noy Cruz, who trained Carlos Palomino, Mexican welterweight guy. He taught me how to punch, sit down on my punches, Mexican style boxing, and he's my hands guy. But I digressed, and we were talking about the question. Alan goes. So I went into the weight room and I got onto the bar, and sometimes when you get onto the bar and everything feels like 500 pounds, well, 500 I can actually do pretty easily back in those days. So everything felt like 1,000 pounds. And I go, fuck this, I'm not working out today, I'm too sore. I go, what do you guys want to do? And I had Eddie Reese and Paul Herrera with me. And they go, I don't know. And I go, hey, I got this flyer from the boxing gym, and it's this jiu-jitsu stuff. And I go, let's go there and see what's up. Let's see what this Gracie jiu-jitsu stuff is. It can't hurt us. We got to figure it out. We'll find out. So we go there, and Eddie is a wrestler, tough nut guy. He fought Yves Edwards once and thing, but anyways, he's a tough guy. He's a good wrestler, and so, but he's a little guy, and he goes out there, and Alon goes is all demonstration and all this kind of stuff, and they didn't want to fight. They just wanted to roll around jiu-jitsu. They started on their knees, and he tapped out Eddie real quick with an arm bar or what have you, and then Paul Herrera, who's from Nebraska, All-American. I'm not sure about his accolades, but he was there with us, and so he went out there and lasted a couple minutes with him. Finally gets tapped out, and mind you, this is jiu-jitsu at the beginning, so, and they weren't punching, they weren't striking, they weren't doing anything. So then he's like, okay, time for the big guy. So I get in there, and I had on a shirt, and he reached up and grabbed the collar, and he starts like choking it, and I kind of like put my fist right by each side of his face, like, do you want to choke me with my shirt, and then we'll turn this into a fight, and I'll blast your face in. So he let go, and then does some more stuff, and he ends up getting an arm bar on me, and I picked him up off the mat, kind of, and I made a fist, like, do you want me? His eyes got all big, like, no, don't hit me. And so he let go, and then he got into some other moves, and he gets a rear naked choke on me, but it was all grab ass, figuring it out, feeling it out, and so there was a history there. And his fighter, I forget who it was, but was fighting, and I was cheering against him, and then Alon Goes comes up and smarts off, and I'm like, hey, we're not in your little dojo, and I'm not here to try to figure out things. I'll fucking kick your ass. So it was me and Eddie started a fight on the side of the octagon there, and all the Brazilian people, all of them were trying to fight. Nothing ever happened, and it was a little ruckus. Turned into a major ordeal. Big John McCarthy and his wife got involved. There's stuff in their nose and stuff that they had nothing to do with. And so, interesting little tidbit. We're at the hotel the next day, and they have an elevator, and it goes down to the pool section, and it was kind of nobody around the elevator. And I rode down the elevator a couple floors down in the car, opens up, and the whole Brazilian posse, if you will, entourage, all the tough guys, they were all standing at the elevator, and I open up, I'm by myself, and I look at them all on goes and all of them. And they all just sat there. I walked right between the whole group. They all just kind of got out of the way. And I walked to the pool. Now, where I come from, if there was heat, and I'm standing there with all my boys, and the head honcho comes down the elevator, he's going to get an ass kicking. But they all, just because they're not warriors at heart, they all like, and I walked off to the pool. But Alon goes, he came into a wrestling room a couple times. I don't have any heat with the guy.
Michael Allen Rubin wants to know if your match with Goldberg was stiff.
No, I don't think anybody that wrestled with at WCW dare got stiff with me, much less would I notice or no. I like it stiff, so I wouldn't even know.
Ibzan wants to know if you had any heat with Hogan, or how was he to you backstage? Hogan
was cool. I mean, he's got a reputation, but Hogan was way cool to me. I actually like the guy. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. He's cool. I don't have a bad word to say about him. Interactions with me, he was always a good guy to me. That's not the stories I hear from other people, but I'm not other people.
Were you Ultimate Warrior, I guess, was in before you were back there, right?
Yeah, I never ran into him.
Razor wants to know who helped you the most achieve your goals.
Oh man, I was saying a true warrior stands alone, and I never really had somebody help me. I always picked people that I used, but no one helped me. No one, like I'll give you my wrestling coach. I just had a natural ability to wrestle, and I wrestled since I was 9 years old, but not anybody that I came in contact with wrestling knew what the hell they were doing technically. And so by the time I got to junior college, this guy, Coach Ray Hawes, Cypress Junior College, is just like all old coaches. They have a legacy behind them, but he taught me how to wrestle, and I learned the science, if you will, of wrestling, and he did. And then Noy Cruz also, you go get him, but Noy Cruz took the time, so I got into boxing because I got in a car accident. The first time I lost my teeth was when I was a freshman in high school. Then on my 19th birthday, I got my teeth knocked out. Almost got my leg cut off in a car accident. And so the lust of combat was kind of taken away from me as far as wrestling at that point in time. I was just going into my sophomore year, so I got into boxing. After wrestling was over for me, I got into boxing and went into the gym. It was like old school, like you see in the movie Rocky stuff. All these old punchy fighter trainer guys, and I walked in there and I go, hey, I want to fight. And Matt Kirihara was the, he used to train Tyrell Biggs. He's kind of a known boxing guy. He says, I'll train you. And so I go, well, I want to fight. And he goes, oh, no, you can't just go fight. That's crazy. He goes, you got to learn how to box. I go, fuck no, I want to fight. When's the next show for the amateur show? I'll fight in that. And he goes, oh, that's like 6 weeks, but you can't do that. You can't go do that. That's crazy. I go, pencil me in for that. I'm fighting. I go in and fight this guy or box this guy. I hate saying fighting. It's boxing. So I go in and box this guy. He was in and out of the gym for like 3 or 4 years. I'm supposed to get destroyed. I end up knocking the stuffing out of this guy just on toughness alone. I didn't know how to throw a punch. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just fighting, street fighting. Noe Cruz, who was Carlos Palomino's, Jackie McCoy, and all that guy, went up to Matt Kirihara, who was training Tyrell Biggs at the time, and he goes, hey, that guy is a fucking animal. He goes, he's got all the shit you can't train. You know, my heart and everything. He goes, you can't train that. He goes, you can make that guy the next white heavyweight champion of the world. And he's like, I don't have time for him. He goes, I have time for him. And he goes, he took over. And so I give all my tutelage and help, if you will, to Noe Cruz and Ray Haas. Ray Haas showed me how to wrestle. Noe Cruz showed me how to box. Together they helped me in those sports. Nothing to do with fighting. Not anything. Back to mixed martial arts, and the reason why I'll say that I came up with mixed martial arts, and all you dilettantes and all you people that don't want me to have any credit for anything, because that'll take away from you. The truth is, I was like the top dog, if you will, the Hulk Hogan of the UFC at the time. Nobody wanted to talk to anybody else at the shows, at the fights. Everybody wanted to talk to me, and it was new, it was real. There wasn't not any of this. It was real fighting, people, and they're like, oh my God, this guy is the real fighter, the true, real warrior, and we want to see that guy. Everybody wanted to talk to me. Don Fry said I was the prized pony. No, I wasn't the prized pony. I was the most popular pony because I was real. I didn't come in and say, I'm a wrestler. No, I said, I'm a fighter. I'm going to kick your ass. Every wrestling room I've ever been in, I could kick everybody's ass, all the way for the little midgets, all the way to the big fat heavyweight. I could kick anybody's ass in that whole thing. Every wrestling room I ever went into. And all the guys that wrestled, they never said a word, because they must not have believed it themselves. But those two guys were the guys that helped me along in those sports, but nobody can teach. That's the big rub and everything. Everybody wants to think you can go buy fighting lessons and you can do this. Now you have to be a warrior in your heart and in your head. You have to have those characteristics. And I check all the boxes. I don't just check a few of them. There's not one warrior quality that you can say that I don't have.
Lanston's wants to know, if you could have had one person at any time in your life to back you up in a fight, who would it be?
Oh, wow. I don't know. Maybe Mike Tyson. You know, Mike Tyson's a hell of a boxer, right? But that guy's got the warrior spirit. I don't know the man, never met the man. You know how they say about that. The thing is best to when you have good thoughts about people, not to meet them, so it gets tarnished. But from what I see about Mike and everything he says, I'm 100% behind him, all the way down to his criminal charges. He got railroaded, he got fucked. But you know what? That guy was a man, and he fucking sucked it up and goes, no way, I'm not going to apologize. That's not me. I'm a warrior, and he is. And the guy likes to have fun, it looks like. And God, I'm sure he's had a lot of fun, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I read his book, and I'm pretty positive he has.
Yes.
William wants to know, at the Ultimate 96, Ken Shamrock couldn't fight you due to a broken hand. Did he say anything to you?
There's another, that's another pullout. Fucking come on. I mean, you ever seen him in person? Sally, my wife, was like freaked out. She's going, "Oh my God, look at that guy!" I go, "Yeah, he's obviously tested positive for steroids. With next time he was supposed to fight me, I would mop that guy up so fast it wouldn't even be funny. I mean, people would be mad at me the mismatch and natural size and ability. I mean, when Knobs can fucking beat you up with a phone, or while Knobs was supposedly passed out, Sags or whoever, I might have met him, but I don't know. But when he can beat you up with a phone, you just stick with your most dangerous gimmick, most dangerous man, and then you can go around and, like somebody said, have somebody grab your cock and do all that. It gives a whole new meaning to the world's most dangerous man when you're wrestling.
I'll just throw this in because I forgot to ask you earlier, but what are your thoughts on Dave Meltzer?
Don't know the guy, never met him. He's got a lot of heat with Eric Bischoff, and I like Eric, so I'll tend to take Eric's side on that because I do like Eric, and back again, goes to integrity and everything else, and Eric is a stand-up guy.
Affy wants to know about your fight with Chemo.
Yes. That's another, I shouldn't have even been in the ring. When I came back, those 3 fights, they came back, they asked me to come back and fight, and I said, yeah, I would love to do that. I don't need to get into the details. I don't need to get into details about my life at that time, but it wasn't good. And Chemo he fought a shell of who I was, and that's all it was. But once again, I got in there and fought, and he won. So if he was to do it again, it wouldn't be the same. I mean, but what is it? If, ands, and buts, candy and nuts, yeah. What, every day would be Christmas or something like that. I can't. But anyways, and then Cabbage. Dana calls me up and says, "Hey, we need footage of you in the gym sparring." All right. By no means. I struggle after my strokes to get back to average intelligence or slightly below it. But he calls me up and says, "Hey man, we need footage for you, for Cabbage." And I'm like, "What do you need footage for?" "Oh, well, yeah, we're going to use it," and all this stuff. I go, you know what? I don't care. You can film me doing whatever. It doesn't matter. But so they came there and filmed me in the thing, and I used to slip punches and go under them, and I would get down real low, and sure that they passed that tape on to Cabbage before it happened. Maybe that small-time Joe Silva. What a bunch of clowns. How do you have that bozo that used to work at an arcade comment on fighting or have any knowledge of fighting? It's like these dilettantes that are probably going to write in the comments, "Oh, I know more about this than you do." No, you don't. Don't even pretend. Joe Silva, he's the biggest joke on planet Earth, used to work for them. I'm sure he had something to do with it, getting the tape and sending it to Cabbage. So Cabbage knew that I was going to come in and bob and weave, and he drilled me with a knee and he split my forehead open. And then another dumbass, John McCarthy, stops it when they put some adrenaline in my cut, and he goes, "You all right? Can you see?" And I go, "No, I can't see because you got shit in my eye. They put that fucking adrenaline stuff, wipe my eye off." And John's, "Oh, nope, stop the fight." Referees don't have anything to do with it. And so I digressed and I went way off base. And so anyway, so that whole thing about the chemo fight, I shouldn't have been there. I shouldn't have been there with Frank Mir, and that Cabbage fight, I was mentally okay, but they had the video of me and they stopped it on a cut. Cabbage came back and fought me. I fought him on the rock and I stretched that motherfucker out like that dumbass needed to be. He's lucky they didn't catch him in the octagon, because my guys are real fighters, and John Marsh threw a water bottle, hit him in the face or whatever. Those guys are all clowns. They all act like they want to be whatever. And so Cabbage fought me again, and so did Ferozzo. And we fought in that backyard, and they taped it. And then now I clicked it on the other day. It's Ferozzo 2. They edited out the fucking best punch where I stretched out Ferozzo. They edited that out. Well, I wonder who made the tape, you know. So chemo, he won. All the losses that I had, the people won, but there's reasons behind them all. But those two guys are the only two guys that came back and fought me again when the playing field was even. And so we all saw what happened to him.
There's a fan that wants to know if you have any stories about Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo Slice, nothing. I just know that we had a bunch of meetings, you know, because Showtime was putting it on, and this shit was illegal at the time, and this is like, you can't fuck it up for Showtime, and talking, it was like sitting through a forum class at a college about fucking underwater basket weaving for 2 hours about you can't cheat, you can't punch, you can't do this. And so like I'm like, okay, perfect. And then we both said about the rules. And like I said, my background is in wrestling. I go, I'll just shoot a fucking double. I'll shoot down him, take him down, and he'll be fish out of water. Fucking guy punches me in the back of the head on Queer Street. Don't know what the fuck's going on. They stopped the fight. I walked over to my corner like, what the fuck happened? And I don't know if they're afraid of me or whatever, but they just, Paul Herrera, and then I was looking at each other like, and then turn around and the guy goes, you ready to go? I'm like, fuck, well, I'm in the fucking cage, you better be ready to go. Yeah, fuck, come on. And he walked over and finished me off. But you know, the rules weren't so drilled into our head and the guy wasn't gonna fucking hit me in the back of the head, I wouldn't have shot on him. But it is, he won, I don't care. But no, as far as him being standoutish about a thing, he told me why we were standing there. He goes, dude, I'm so sorry for hitting you in the back of the head. He didn't say that, but he said it. I mean, and I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And I didn't go and cry about it at the press conference. I just let him have his glory. It's his deal. It was whatever. But outcome could have been different. But I'm not going to complain about it.
A few people are asking on here if you've seen Jack Swagger, any of his MMA matches. He used to be in WWE.
I know who he is or whatever, slightly, pictures of him, whatever. And I'll ask you, because you're the wrestling guy, did he used to be the Harvard dude?
No, okay. That's a different guy. They do look, I see the similarity though.
Okay, so that would be, as much as I know who Jack Swagger is. So no, I don't know anything about him.
Shot in the Dark wants to know if you guys go out and have beers after fights like wrestling, or is there animosity after?
Well, a friend of mine was a POW in Vietnam, and his name's Major Mark Smith, Zippo, and he's quite the character, and Vietnam is his life, and he's one hell of a guy. And I sat there and go, hey Mark, you know, what's up? And he's you know, like, did you ever hang out with this whatever? He was talking about things, and he said, Tank, because let me tell you something. And he smokes cigarettes out of a black cigarette holder, and he's a hardened warrior, combat warrior. And he goes, we're like eagles. He goes, warriors are like eagles. And he goes, and I go, how's that? And he goes, they might share the side of a mountain now and then. He goes, but they never flock. So other fighters I don't really hang out with. I mean, like Eddie, who is much smaller than I am. We both think a lot alike, but he is a little guy, and he's been beat up by me numerous times, very comically. We were in Mexico at not a restaurant, but a hotel, and I got us the presidential suite, and we're sitting at the table, and he got in an argument with me about turning the channels on a couch in this living room adjacent to the dining room, and we had room service coming, and he ended up getting on top of me because I was thinking he was choking me, and I was telling him, get the fuck off of me, I'm not in the mood, I'm hungover. So I busted him, and I hit him in the ribs and broke his ribs, and timing is everything. The doorbell rings for the suite for the room service, and it's a Mexican lady in a uniform, and she's pushing the cart, and Eddie's rolling around in the living room with broken ribs, and she's pushing it by, staring at us, and she set up the thing, and then she pushed her cart out and left, as Eddie was still sitting there going, ah! And I've also beat him up other times, but he was unruly and he deserved to be beat up. So
Lewis wants to know if you thought the asylum cage sucked when you saw it.
It sucked so much I don't remember seeing it. So yeah, there was a lot of goofy things that went down.
Gregory wants to know about your book.
My books are on my end. First of all, I wrote the book maybe over in a bar over like 3 years, and it's been going through constant altering it and editing it and everything else, and it's not been like the front burner for me. And I get to it, it's an intellectual exercise, and I wrote over 1,000 pages, but it's finally done on my end completely. And then the third book, Cage Fighter, should be out. I always say this, like, it should be out tomorrow, but it could be coming soon. But everything on my end is done, and it should be ready to go. It's just a matter of getting it done. And it's all about a fighter, Walter Fox, or a warrior, Walter Fox, that used to stomp the streets of Orange County, and was, through his behaviors, ended up in jail for beating up big mouth punks that thought they were tough at bars. In the street fighting world back in the day, you didn't call the cops. And he ended up getting thrown in jail. He gets out and he fights in a show, a no-holds-barred show, and becomes Crazy Fox at the end of the book. And it's a parody, and it's a novel, so it's not an autobiography by any means. And check it out. Before There Were Rules. It's 3 books. The first book, Bar Brawler, just kind of sets the stage about the lives of the late 80s, early 90s, and how everybody was back then, because there was no MMA stuff. And the second book, Cage Fighter, it just kind of goes on to fighting and being involved. That'd be the third book. Street Warrior is the second book, so I get all mixed up. And then Cage Fighter is when Walter Fox gets out of jail for beating up a cop's son that had a big mouth that thought he was tough and got his ass handed to him. Walter Fox goes to jail for that, gets out of jail, and then through some backdoor things that happened, Walter Fox gets into the UFC by accident. Or did I say UFC? NHB. He gets into it by accident and surprises the whole world by being a real fighter, not some of these bozos like that pussy fucking Anthony Macias, thinking, oh, God, I don't know how that guy walks around in this world. I hope he's prostitute in Tijuana fucking for Mexican.
There's a fan that wanted to know how many street fights you've been in, speaking of your street fight book.
I obviously never kept tally of it, but I sat down and thought about, like, you know, how many times have I been in fights and altercations and everything else like that, and it has to be in the hundreds, because I would go out and party every weekend and weekdays and everything else, but most people came out on weekends, and my source of entertainment and fun was fighting. And so there was at least 2 fights a weekend, and I went out every weekend. I obviously, with the liver transplant and the kidney transplant, I don't like to call myself an alcoholic. I call myself a funaholic. Because I tell you, I've had more weekends than most, and I can tell you this: I make the most of it. I dare to say, and it's all relative, and everybody can say, "Oh, how can you say that?" But I've had more fun than you could even imagine. And live to talk about it. I know people that kind of got on the same track as I did, but they fall off like flies. They crash and burn because they're mental pussies, or, oh, you call them a mental pussy because he can't party. But I'm just saying that they have a breakdown, and or they're physically breakdown, they die. But I died. I made it. I'm lucky. I'm thankful. Thank you so much to the donors. If you are in a position to be a donor, you have to put yourself, you're not using your organs, you're dead, man. Use them. Give them to somebody. It's through the roof.
This is a funny question. I Am Hack wants to know, who would you fuck, marry, or kill from WCW, or and kill, of that little game?
Oh, God.
Any one of the talents, including the Nitro girls, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I never was into any of those girls. They you talk about cliques. They ran with the other people's cliques, and so I don't know, you call it barbaric or whatever, but they were property of the cliques. And I was a free floater, man. I did my own thing. I didn't need to be a clique. And so I never really cared about anybody's women in WCW. Actually had very little talking. Hi, bye, and hello, whatever. Hey, how you doing, young lady? But that was about it. And then that would be, takes care of the fucking part. What was the other ones?
Marry, which he didn't like any of the women, so I guess that cancels that out. And kill, who of anyone in WCW would you kill?
Oh, well, as I said, the 2 people that others talk about on social media. I mean, so I always like, well, maybe I'm just being hard on them because maybe I had a bad day or I was a jerk or whatever. But Terry Taylor is right on the top of the list.
Did you see the Scott Steiner incident with Terry Taylor, by the way?
No. Should I look it up?
It was a backstage thing where Scott threw a TV monitor at him. But I interrupted you on that. Sorry. Just popped into my head.
No worries. But did Terry Taylor put his tail through his legs and run like a bitch?
Apparently, and Steiner got fined over it.
Oh, sure. That doesn't doubt it. Anyways, like, so that him and Lex Luger. And Lex Luger, he just wrongfully disrespecting me because he didn't even know who I was. But that's almost makes it worse. Like, you're disrespecting people you don't even know. Like, if I did something to him and he's like, hey, fuck you, that's one thing. But he didn't even know who I was and he's disrespecting me. Like, who the fuck do you think you are? You know, I'll show you who I am. Come on. As fucked up as I am right now, with I got 3 people living in me or whatever, got a liver and a kidney, I'll get up and fucking try to fucking fuck you up and die trying to do it, because that's just the way I am.
Well, Luger's in a wheelchair now, so I don't think he'd be too difficult to...
Oh, well, that wouldn't be too bad.
that might get a pay-per-view buyer, too.
And then the winner gets Don Fry. Don Fry! Fuck Don Fry!
Martin wants to know, what was your job before getting into MMA?
Oh, I was selling garage doors for a friend. He wanted to get a sectional garage door. You call up and say, hey, come put these doors in. You had to have somebody come out and measure the doors and try to sell you what kind of door you wanted. I wasn't much of a salesman because people already know that they want the door. I was just the in-between guy to get the contract signed and take the measurements. Pretty cake job. I didn't work that much and kept me in booze, and that's all that mattered.
Scooch wants to know if any wrestlers tried to rib you.
Oh, I'm sure they did, but I don't remember, and I don't really care. It was like, whatever.
Victor wants to know why you lost weight during your time in WCW.
Oh, no, I didn't really lose weight in WCW when I was there. But the whole point is, from fighting, when I was fighting, I wanted to be strong, so I ate everything you put in front of me. I never did the gas. I never got on it. I never had to. I'm a freak of nature. Not too many people can walk around and say they never take a steroid and it benches over 600 pounds. And so, but I got response just eating food. I would go like to Sizzler and get like all you could eat steak and shrimp and fucking a salad bar, and then what else would I get? Like a chicken breast thing. I would get like 3 things. I would just eat like crazy, to the point where it hurt. I was like, when you talk about weight, gaining weight and losing weight, you have to hurt yourself. You just don't eat.
A long story short wants to know, when you were doing your knockout punch finisher in WCW, did you ever accidentally seriously hurt somebody with that?
Scott Steiner, total accident. And there was reported heat between the brothers there. They didn't like each other and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how much of a work that was, but they did some angle with me and Scott and a group of people, and they had Rick on my side, and so Scott did something and Rick was to hold Scott back from me by his arms, and then I was supposed to come up and punch him in the face and knock him down, knock him out, but that was because Rick was holding his arms back and he couldn't protect himself. I go up to do the punch and told him I could pretty much, I had it down where I could punch somebody and make it look like I just hit you with a wallop and it would feel like a feather. So I had it down. Well, I go, don't mess up the distance because you'll screw up. Well, Rick was holding his arms and he's like, yeah, get him, Tank, get him, get him, get him. So I get ready to throw the punch and we all knew what was going on. Rick kind of adjusted Scott's face closer to the glove. And so instead of me just touching his lips, Scott was pushed by his brother Rick into it, and it split his lip wide open. and he went crazy, running around the backstage, and I'm like, oh wow. I go, hey Scott, I go, fuck, your brother fucking kind of pushed you into it. And he's like, yeah, accident, don't worry about it. Scott's always been cool to me.
Hector wants to know about your fights with Hugo Duarte and Pedro Rizzo.
Pedro Rizzo. And what was the first guy?
Hugo
Duarte. I think I was discussing that with you before, and I got them all mixed up because of my strokes. But Hugo Duarte, I don't know. They were selling him to me. I think I fought him in New Orleans or somewhere like that. And I was in pretty good shape then, and he was supposed to be the Mike Tyson of the Vale Tudo stuff and all this kind of things. And so I made short work of him. But then again, I was on my game there. And his fight, he kicked the shit out of me. I don't know if I subconsciously or consciously put my hand up like when I say he kicked the shit out of me. No, he kicked the shit out of me, but I had no respect for a leg kick, and then I learned out real quick that you should, because he was fucking blasting my fucking leg, and I always said, fucking go ahead, I'll trade a kick for a punch. Every time you throw that, I'll fucking kick. But he has a big long legs, and he fucking whack, and I was like, oh my god, that fucking hurt. And I tried to hit him at the fucking guy. He had reach on me. Tried to take him down, and there was an interesting thing. Has nothing to do with it, but I was having trouble, to throw my punches and sit down on my feet with those punches. But I had wrestling shoes on, and the canvas they had there had like a resin on it, almost like a fiberglass kind of resin over a tarp. And then when I was getting in the ring, all these guys run in the ring with water bottles, and they're pouring water all over the fucking canvas. And I didn't think of it till later when I was in Rio de Janeiro partying. What the fuck were they doing that for? And Hizzo had bare feet. And so I'm thinking the rubber on my wrestling shoes was hindering me from sitting down on my punches and moving around. And so that would be the thing. But no, he kicked the shit out of me. I learned how to check a kick after that. Fucking point my knee out and stuff. But fuck, before that I was ignorant. I should have had somebody fucking bust me up in training, but hindsight's 20/20.
Tim wants to know your best bench press, squat, and deadlift.
Oh man, I've done a 625. That's without a shirt, without wraps, without steroids. And then I think the world record at the time. And I never did like a powerlifting pause at the bottom of my lift, because I was always lifting for explosion. I never seen anybody push somebody to a knockout. You can put straw through steel if it's going fast enough. So I always try to have an explosion out of there and boom. So I never really paused it, but I did a 625 pretty easily. Squat, I had respectable squat power. I would do without a belt, full on squats with 405. I'm not exaggerating weights or anything. I would do that by myself, like for sets of 4 with 405 without a belt, like real deep squats without wraps, without anything. And that would be like, I never did like for like a heavy single, and I never did deadlifts ever. I used to do straight leg deadlifts.
There's a bunch of fans, including Jay Miller and Philip Connor, that wants to know your thoughts on Benoit, who I'm sure you ran across in WCW.
Yeah, okay, you have to realize when I got into professional wrestling, I knew, like, the Junkyard Dog, Hulk Hogan, the big names of that era type thing. But Benoit, I didn't even know who he was. Real quiet guy. He always struck me. He's quiet, said hi and bye. He was just whatever. I didn't realize that in the wrestling world he was like a technical wizard or whatever. But he was always kept to himself and never thing. Like when I heard about the things that went down, it was like, wow, that guy did that. But that was as far as it went with Benoit.
AEW wrestling historian wants to know your thoughts on Vince Russo wanting to make you world champion.
News to me that I was going to be world champion, and they had some thing. I came there, and collectively they're called the Boys, and I go walking through the thing, and they go, "Oh, they put a strap on you," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like, it was like a strap. What do you mean? They're like, "Oh yeah, they're gonna make you the champion," and I'm like, no one's ever told me any of this stuff, and I didn't know that it was such a big deal. And I'm like, whatever they want to do, this is their business. They know what they're doing. And I guess Russo had plans for me to do that, but it was like shock to me. And then it was shock. I was supposed to win against Sid. Shocked me. Didn't give it much thought. It was like whatever. So, yeah.
Did you like Sid?
Yeah. Sid was a cool guy. No nonsense kind of dude. You kind of could tell that he was like just here for the money, and that's what we do. Actually, he was the first guy that came up and talked to me. We were in D.C. and they brought my guys that I walk out with, and so we're all sitting in the back taking it in, kind of more like spectators, like, wow, this is crazy. I was just beginning, and Sid came up to me, and I was like going, fuck, he must have been on the gas or whatever. He is fucking huge. And he comes over and he spreads his legs all apart, and he puts his hands down on his knees, so he's looking at your eye level. And I'm thinking in myself, Jesus Christ, this is a big motherfucker. And he goes, here, let me tell you something, Tank. And he starts giving me the lowdown on things. Like, it's best to keep to yourself and this and that. And I was like, oh, thanks for the info. And like, I didn't know what he was talking about because I was still ignorant about the whole deal. But as time went by, and I was like, oh, that's what Sid was talking about. But Sid was always a straight-up guy, kind of.
Rob wants to know if you respected Vitor Belfort for standing up against you instead of grappling.
Didn't think much of it. The fight, what have you, and obviously he caught me with a good punch. I went out, whatever. That's what happens. That's what that's the fighting game, and this isn't boxing, where there's technique involved and skill, and that's when you start getting into hand speed, and it's not so much technique. And so when you're wrestling and boxing and striking and all that kind of stuff mixed together, it opens you up for shots that normally if you were just boxing you would catch and block. So he caught me with a good shot, so what? Knocked me out. What are you gonna do? It happens. There's no one undefeated in fighting that I know of.
Nicholas Stein wants to know what kind of music you listen to. I know you were playing the Smiths for me earlier.
Oh yeah, I listen to all sorts of things. The Smiths, Morrissey, Doors.
Oh yeah, they're a great band.
Juggalos, ICP.
You're gonna have to put some Doors on in there for me after.
Oh,
He's got a great sound system, fans, in his living room.
Yeah. And so, yeah, nice little pad I have here. It's my Shangri-La, man. Like I said, I boned out of HB because I like to say, the saying, it's gone to pot.
Which is legal in Arizona now, by the way, fans, apparently, from what I understand. David Richard wants to know if there was any wrestler that helped you out the most in pro wrestling.
I thought about that. There's a bunch of no-name guys that were wrestling at the power plant that helped me out. And God forgive me, but I forgot their names. But then he had this guy named Sarge. He was a short little guy. He ran things, Sarge, but he wasn't really a hands-on guy. There was a guy there, God, for the life of me, can't remember his name, but he was cool. And it's heavy competition there, and so everybody was trying to. I already had a contract and everything else, and they were trying to get a contract. So, there's all this competition to shine at the power plant. And I was kind of removed from there. But so they had these guys that would help other people in there wrestle. And so, and I want to say his name was Dave. He had long brown curly hair. I can't remember his name forever. I was like, oh wow, this is kind of but he took a hands-on approach to helping me out. Paul Orendorff was like the head of the power plant, and he never ever was in the they had like 4 or 5 rings, it might be 6 rings. Nice facility. And Paul would come out now and then. Paul was a grumpy old guy. I don't even know if he's still with us.
He has Alzheimer's and dementia, I believe, but he's still alive.
Well, he had it back then, and that was 20 years ago.
He beat cancer, but
the only thing I came in there with, and slowly but surely they found out that I was signed up, and go in and have his meeting with them. And back in the day, he didn't know what UFC was and whatever. He said, oh, that tough man, he's stuff like this and that. And I'm like, yeah, well, whatever, just got to learn how to do the basics of wrestling and figure out. I got kind of a following for people that know who a real warrior is and a true fighter. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, oh, man. And I'm looking at him across the desk, and he goes, I can't wait to get you on the gas. And I'm like, what? And he goes, the gas. The gas. You'll be off. And I'm like, this guy's fucking crazy in a funny way, not a scary way. And so then I walked out, and all the guys are all like snooping around, like, why did Paul call you into his office? Had like a big glass thing you could see in the thing, and I go, I don't know, he was talking about what they were thinking about doing with me. Dusty Rhodes, and him and Arn Anderson were in professional wrestling. I told you about amateur wrestling and boxing.
Yeah.
Dusty Rhodes and Arn Anderson were good for wrestling with me, but not technically, but just the nuts and bolts of it. But so I go out there and they, what would Paul want? And I go, I don't know, man. He was talking about getting me on the gas. And they all fucking laughed. He goes, "Do I know who you are?" And I go, "I don't know. I don't think so." And he goes, "You'd be on death row if you in less than a month if they got you on the gas. Are you crazy?" And I'm like, that's just what Paul said, and that was the only real takeaway I have of Orendorff.
I see your dog's wrestling around with me.
Yeah, hey bud, come here. Come on. Come on. Over here, come on up.
This is living. This is living wants to know your honest opinion of Don Fry in his prime, despite what Don Fry said about you the other day. What would you think?
Oh, I loved that he said it. Actually, like I said, I like Don Fry. He shot over the bow first, and he got back. Well, he seems a little sore and whatever, but he's a tough guy. Whatever, what are you gonna say? He's a tough guy. If I was to fight him again, I would beat him easily, handedly.
Well, today
he can come over here. I was gonna say,
you're gonna have him show up at your house if he hears that.
Yeah, no, well, oh yeah.
Dave,
you can film it.
Yeah. Dave Richard wants to know what you think about Ken Shamrock in 2021.
I always thought he was a joke to begin with. Nothing's changed that. I think it's funny. He put out his little book, making himself a victim. All these guys are victims. Him and Tito Ortiz and all this stuff. I'm a victim of living a comfortable life. That's the only thing I'm a victim of.
Yeah, you're not that type at all. AJ 2000 wants to know your opinion of current UFC.
Like I said, I haven't really watched it. I can't even tell you. The last fight I saw, only because of the people that hang out at the gym, I actually went and saw Congo fight. Czech Congo.
Yeah.
He fought that guy from Arizona here. I can't even think of his name, little wrestler guy. On the rematch, and they stopped it because of the eye gouge or whatever up in San Jose. We went out and saw that fight, and then I saw the fight with Fedor and Rampage. Rampage got all fat and thought he was a heavyweight, and Fedor kind of showed him that's not how it works. But those are the only reason why, because of the same gym, Huntington Beach Ultimate Training Center down there with Tiki, running that joint down there. But those are the only guys fight. I can't even tell you a fight that I've seen that, and I think it's that Nagano guy. He looks, from what I see on the YouTube things and all that kind of stuff, he seems to be like that doesn't ever tell you. I haven't looked under his hood yet, and I'm sure all you haters out there are gonna have nice little jokes about that. But who knows? I don't know what kind of heart he has, or what kind of warrior status he is. But who knows?
Big Guy Sports Collector wants to know who hit you the hardest in UFC, and was Nelmark your craziest KO?
Oh, I've knocked a lot of people out in this life. I've been in the cage. So I couldn't tell you how many. I didn't even register the Nelmark thing. And what was the beginning question?
Who hit the hardest in UFC?
Cannot tell you anybody that hit the hardest, because there's like a cliche or a saying, when you get hit hard enough to be knocked out, you really don't know how hard it is. So somebody that knocked me out. But I can tell you one thing: no one's fucking beat on me. Like, people have beat me, but like Dan Severn, right? That guy, he's not like a warrior. You don't think of Dan Severn as a warrior. He doesn't have that attitude. Like, I walk down the street and look at everyone and see which way I want to kill somebody. I could see Dan like walking down the street saying, who do I want to hug?
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, so, and I don't dislike Dan, but, in the past, when I was younger, trying to stir stuff up, I would call him a big dumb goof and that kind of stuff. But I actually have heard him on on YouTube interviews and stuff like that, and he's not dumb by any means, and let's just put it this way, he's no Tito, and so he's got a good grasp of what things go on. Back in the day when he fought me, I didn't really feel like he kicked my ass. He won the fight, but he won it by holding me down on the ground and slapping me in the back of the head till the clock ran out. Like, I used to do that when I wrestled in college. I would go out and get my takedown in and then hold on to the lead, get an escape, and I used to cut people loose, and I'd win like 3-2, and so I understand all that. But so, like, Dan won the fight, but did he kick my ass? If it was a fight to the death, I'd lay there till he got fucking tired of slapping me and then get up and fucking beat his ass. But that didn't happen, so who cares about that anyways? I don't care about winning or losing.
Jordan King wants to know how you would have done in the Brawl for All that WWE had.
Obviously, walk in my shoes, you got to think that you would win, and those guys aren't guys at a professional level as in fighting on their feet. Maybe they can grapple, but standing on their feet. So I paid my dues in the old school boxing gyms. I didn't get some boxing trainer after the fact that I went and fought in the UFC. I cut my teeth in boxing, real boxing matches. And so as far as what was the
well, Bart Gunn won, and then Butterbean ended up knocking out Bart Gunn.
As far as those guys boxing, I mean, it's kind of like me. It's like, let's have a swimming contest against Mark Spitz.
You talked about this guy before we went live, but Don was wondering if you had any stories about Paul Varlins.
Yeah, no.
Well, you have right now an Instagram and a Twitter. I don't know if you control your Twitter anymore, but how can fans follow you?
Yeah, just on Instagram. I checked that out. That's about it.
And what's that, Sally? Tank.Abbott on Instagram, and there might.
That's my wedding picture with my awesome wife. I'm telling you, she is the greatest person in the world, and she's made me a better person for marrying her.
Yeah, and in the first interview, I'll just say this on the record now, people were asking why you kept looking to the side. It's because it was just before you got married, and your family members were sitting at the bar watching that interview.
Yeah.
And I'll throw in one last fan question. I don't know where this is coming from, but Steven Seagal, did you really meet him and have something?
Nope, another story. Did Boss Rutan tell you that? And then, in my parody novel is martial art legends. You have Butch Gee, Chung Flores, and Evan Siegel.
Those are the names of the people in your book, the way that you write your book, which again, everyone can look that up on Amazon.
That book is a true warrior fighting his way from the streets into a cage and fighting in front of TV and all this shit that goes on behind it, how that guy got there. And just, it was meant to be, for some reason, God or a higher power, or whatever you believe in, has to have a hand in it. I'm telling you, because it's Walter Fox is the deal.
Anything you want to say to the fans to close this off?
Keep on keeping on, and don't believe all these fools that are. There's only one rub I have in this whole thing, in this business that I'm in, and that is, this place is, this space, not place, or of MMA, is filled with a bunch of phonies, fakers, all trying to be like Beowulf. They all come off like they're and we're serious fighters and all this, and they all turn out to be fakes, phonies, telling phony stories about passing me in an airport or me running from a bar fight. Guy's been in more 200 street fights, and I'm going to be afraid of a little pipsqueak called Pat Miletich. Come the fuck on. Guy's a retard.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch our full shoot interviews ad-free and help our channel grow. Follow us on Twitter at the Hannibal TV for instant updates.